The purple-haired physician stands ready. The emperor demands confirmation that the physician has brought the requested item. Arrogant nobles mock the physician for her lowly Eastern origins and lack of family pride. She remains while enduring their hateful, racist taunts regarding her family's downfall. The imperial family's treasure shines brilliantly. The smirking emperor cruelly declares that he cannot grant the physician's simple wish. Without warning, an imperial guard draws a blade and delivers a lethal, sweeping strike. She gasps as blood spells out. As she collapses on the carpet, the emperor admits his growing unease and refusal to let her live to serve others. Hookby Yu desperately attempts to heal herself, lamenting that she let her guard down. The emperor sentences her to die. The nobles mock her further, revealing they blocked her access to clean water to prevent her from using her healing abilities. An attendant warns the emperor to be careful of his hair. Hookby Yu shocks the room by revealing the emperor secretly commissioned a hair loss remedy, mocking him as rotten to the core. The emperor panics, desperately shouting for everyone to look away from his balding head. She further destabilizes the court by mentioning her secret meetings with 3 other kingdoms interested in her immortality elixir. The noble crowd reacts with panic. As the emperor curses her, Hookby Yu laughs spitefully while continuing to cough up blood. Her vision fades into dark oblivion. In her final moments, she reflects on her body reaching its limit and her failed potential as a genius. She wonders about a different path. Standing amidst the chaos, she curses the entire court and hopes they all perish in a miserable war before she dies. She dies with a spiteful grin. A child wakes with a scream sounding, "Wah!" The scene shifts to a quiet room. Hookby Yu realizes she has regressed and must now endure another 20 years of life. She laments being possessed inside a novel and wonders why it happened to her. The young pharmacist shows culinary talent. Her genius talent moves many hearts. She eventually heals her father's disease. A teacher in blue robes demands the young girl focus on the lesson. She finds the repetitive history lectures tiresome. She questions why she regresses back to age 3 every time she dies. Meanwhile, the teacher announces a test to see if the children can wield the family's power. The Eastern continent honors natural spirits. A red banner represents the Hook family. Extraordinary healing powers remain their hallmark. A legendary healer saves an emperor. The family settles in the empire. Hookby Yu views the family history lectures as subtle indoctrination of their ideology. She is presented with water, a fan, and ore to choose for her trial. She selects the cup of water and prepares to treat an assigned patient.
A hall of suffering awaits her.
Patients brought from the slums suffer in pain as a low moan sounds. A young child cries in terror. Wah! The frightening atmosphere overwhelms the children. She observes a patient's severe bed sores and the stench of illness as he groans. She questions the morality of forcing children to treat such critically ill patients to find ability users. The determined child stands her ground. She dips her hand into water. Splash! A torrent of water surges upward. As the water swirls around her, she finally reveals her name is Hookby Yu. The family's hidden genius is revealed. Her life is fragile as a butterfly. Hookby Yu recalls memorizing everything because of a friend, while she adjusts her glasses. In her first life, she was exploited as a genius slave until an explosion killed her during a patient's rampage. During her second life, she hid her brilliance but died falling off a cliff while trying to save a patient. Exasperated by the recurring cycle, the purple-haired girl declares she cannot take this anymore. She recalls an imperial treasure that grants wishes, hoping to leave her cursed family behind. Determined to return to her original world, she sprints through the palace grounds. After dying again because of the prince, a massive splash sounding as water surrounds the young girl. The purple-haired girl reflects on her situation while surrounded by swirling magic. She acknowledges the empire's deep-rooted hatred for East Asian immigrants as an insurmountable obstacle. A sudden torrent of water surges through the room as healers and patients look on in surprise. Looking at the sick, she realizes they are all suffering from an epidemic fever. She instructs that the medicine be made by mixing medicinal roots with dried herbs into the water. A brilliant golden light suddenly erupts. Magic energy radiates through the hall as onlookers react with shock. The medicine flows across the floor to treat the patients resting on mats. The sick are stunned to find their wounds healed and their fevers gone as a murmur sounding. Hook Bu walks away silently, leaving the hall behind. The massive Hook family mansion stands grand under a clear sky. Walking through the long corridors, a heavy gasp sounding as she struggles for breath. The young girl is overwhelmed by the unbelievable size of the palace. She views the sprawling landscape of the imperial estate from above. She complains that her small body cannot handle walking across a place as large as a village. She considers her grandmother, Hook Moran, the current head of the family. She recalls the family's history of death and disappearance. The girl thinks of the 3 brothers who fell ill with incurable diseases. She continues her walk while thinking about Hook Ayan's father. She observes the family's slow descent into ruin as the warriors fall ill. She notes that the family desperately seeks a genius leader through constant examinations. She remains wary of aunts who sabotage rivals to ensure their own children's success. She decides it is better to follow the original story's flow instead of taking a hard path. Looking at the young Hook Ayan, she realizes the 2-year-old cannot help her yet. She resolves to pave her own way as she walks forward. A black-haired girl smiles brightly against a blue backdrop. She plans to use a future palace visit to obtain the treasure and return home. She suddenly notices someone lying in the corridor ahead. She trips and falls with a loud "ouch" sounding as she hits the floor. A man with long black hair lies sleeping on the tiles. She realizes he is the youngest brother and should be in the eastern wing. She identifies the sleeping man as Hugh Barong, her uncle and the father of the protagonist. He remains in a deep sleep, surrounded by shimmering light. She shakes him and calls out to him, but he does not wake up. A loud sounding as she realizes her hand hurts from hitting him with no reaction. She explains that he suffers from severe narcolepsy and sleepwalking. She identifies his condition as her first patient's incurable disease. The small girl stands next to the large sleeping man in the courtyard. She stares at him with a flat expression, annoyed by his total lack of response. A soft "ah" sounding as she looks at her reddened palm. She wonders if her uncle's body is made of steel since her hand hurts so much. Hook Bu sets down a large water jug and a bowl on the stone floor. A sudden, powerful splash sounding as water begins to rise from the bowl. The liquid flows and swirls gracefully around her small hands. She stands ready, surrounded by a swirling aura of glowing, magical water. The water splashes onto the floor with a rhythmic flow as she manipulates it. She looks at the sleeping man and considers the best way to rouse him. She refuses to back down, determined to make every moment of her fourth life count. A loud bang sounding as she strikes the sleeping man to wake him up. A quick tap sounding as the man suddenly grabs her arm midair.
A sharp whoosh sounding as he flips the startled girl over his shoulder.
The man exhales a heavy breath as he begins to stir from his sleep. A soft slide sounding as he places his hand firmly on the ground to stabilize himself.
She is shocked by his sudden reaction, viewing the move as a surprise assassination attempt.
The man stands up and hoists the girl by her robes to ask for her identity. He reflects on a past conversation regarding a princess in a quiet cafe setting. He glares at her with intense blue eyes and asks if she wants to die. She gasps for air while being held aloft, struggling to catch her breath. She shouts at him to let her down, identifying herself as Hookby Yu. He is stunned to realize she is his niece and yells out in total surprise. He observes her resemblance to his sister-in-law, confirming she is his brother's daughter. She coughs loudly, complaining about the rough treatment she received despite her young age. She wonders about the meaning of the butterfly nickname her uncle mentioned. He flinches at her sharp gaze, looking clearly caught off guard by her attitude. He claims he was simply enjoying the nice weather, but she calls it a lie. She confronts him about his narcolepsy and how it prevents him from living normally. She mentions how he has isolated himself in the estate's abandoned east wing. A soothing splash sounding over a wide view of the sprawling imperial mansion. Narrations explain that the abandoned east wing houses those confined by the family. She reflects on the fates of the head family's 3 sons and her own cousin. She notes that her father and the others are destined to die unless things change. She declares that their impending deaths are exactly why she is taking action now. She sits before her uncle and demands that he listen to her carefully.
A quick slide sounding as she leans in to share a confidential secret with him.
The two sit together against the backdrop of a grand, glowing golden seal. He dismisses her words as nonsense and tells her to go play elsewhere.
A sharp stop sounding as he freezes when she claims she can cure him.
He's skeptical as she declares her status as a medical genius who can heal him. He looks at her with concern, wondering if she is also suffering from an illness. A rhythmic slosh sounding as she prepares the water for her medical demonstration. A quick clatter sounding as she tells him he will understand once he experiences it. A massive splash sounding as a torrent of water erupts from the bowl. He is speechless as the magical water surges through the corridor toward him. She recalls how this ability made her the Empire's top physician in a previous life. The man is completely engulfed by the swirling, magical currents of the water. The magical water surges violently through the hall in a grand display of power. She reflects on the healing potential of her mastered water abilities. The man remains trapped within the swirling vortex of her magic. She chides him for speaking while she performs her medical examination. She reminds him that he should be familiar with water as a fellow ability user. He stares in silence as he spots a concerning bruise on her small arm. The man admits he didn't hold back because he mistook the child for an assassin. He looks at the swirling magic and remarks on the small child's presence. He is impressed that the purple-haired girl endured his strength without a sound. As medicinal bubbles float around her, she comments that the treatment is excessive. Looking up at her uncle, she wonders about the staggering amount of medicine required. A scene of healers tending to a patient appears within the swirling magic. She explains her ability to concoct any medicine on the spot once diagnosed. Using her magic, she identifies the necessary ingredients through her diagnostic water. She claims that her extensive database allows her to treat most illnesses immediately. She notes his condition is considered a curse and counts hundreds of required medicines. A massive, swirling surge of water fills the courtyard around the man. Drenched and bewildered, the man stares as water drips from his face. He covers his ears and shouts that he refuses to listen to her. She insists on helping him, but he argues that he just sleeps a lot. He tells her to return to the main house, while she notes his stubbornness. She asks why he denies being ill, leaving him in a tense silence. He clutches his head in distress, clearly overwhelmed by his situation. She reminds him of her vast experience as both a physician and apothecary. He argues that every doctor fails him, though he admits to being a patient. He shouts about his frustration with incurable labels as the girl flinches. The man continues to refuse her help while standing in the spacious courtyard. Surprised by his outburst, she finally agrees to drop the subject for now. He stares at her, clearly caught off guard by her sudden compliance. She decides to leave him be, understanding that long-term illness has made him sensitive. He tells her to go to her father as he sits on the ground. A quick, playful tap sounding as he pokes her forehead with his finger. He walks away down the hallway, leaving the young girl standing alone. He counts to 1 before his body suddenly gives out. He collapses face down on the stone floor of the courtyard. Looking at the fallen man, she finds the Sleeping Beauty comparison quite inaccurate. A mischievous smirk appearing as she looks down at the bruise on her arm. She resolves to go brew some medicine while her uncle remains asleep. Amidst a starry void, his hand reaches out as he describes his chronic lethargy. A majestic blue dragon illustration represents the blessing that keeps his body sturdy. Fragments of memories show lost time with friends and his newborn daughter, Ayan. A sharp, rhythmic slap sounding as she shakes his shoulders to wake him up. He snaps awake in a rage while she cheers for her success. He wonders how she finds him, but she cites her years of experience. He grinds his teeth, annoyed that even his eldest brother wouldn't disturb him. He gazes at a woman standing beneath a beautiful canopy of cherry blossoms. The woman in his memory comforts him, saying his condition is not his fault. His gaze hardens as he notices the bruised skin on the young girl's arm. A surge of repressed anger and guilt washes over him as he glares. He finally gives in, telling her that he understands her persistence. A sudden, confident pop sounding as she pulls out a bottle of medicine. She presents the golden liquid with a bright, triumphant smile amidst the blossoms. He questions if he should trust a concoction made by an unlicensed amateur. He reaches for the bottle, claiming he'll do her a favor by dying. He admits he wouldn't leave his daughter, but her grim warning startles him. Hookby Yu stands peacefully under the falling petals, clutching her medicinal bottle. Narrations explain that his condition began after he collapsed during a gathering at the main house. She explains that his sleeping spells are growing longer, while his waking hours are becoming dangerously short. Hookbirang looks on in stunned silence as the young girl delivers her clinical diagnosis. She presses the bottle of sparkling golden medicine into his hands, urging him to take it. She assures him that she is far more capable than the previous doctors who failed to treat him. The small girl beams with pride as she presents her custom-made remedy to the skeptical man. A gentle breeze stirs the long purple hair of the determined child as she waits for his response. Reflecting on her mastery in a previous life, she claims her medical treatment is the absolute best. He reluctantly agrees to take the medicine on the condition that she promises to stop bothering him. A rhythmic slosh sounding as the man begins to drink the entire bottle of medicine. As she reflects on preparing the herbs in advance, a sudden oop sounding as the man reacts to the taste. A loud blur sounding as he gags on the bitter taste, while the girl is pleased he finished it. She offers him a candy for the bitterness, but he angrily rejects her kindness. He accuses her of attempting to poison him, while she inwardly notes his high poison resistance. She skips away with a cheerful goodbye, while the frustrated man shouts for her to stop. He bellows for her to return and explain herself as she disappears into the distance. The memory of her persistent demands to take her medicine continues to echo in his mind. He recalls her shouting for him to stop and comply with her rigorous treatment plan. Her determined expression haunts his thoughts as he stares at the medicine bottle he just emptied. The soft sounding as the man looks down at the medicine container with an exhausted expression. When she offers him a candy once more, he irritably tells her to forget about it. She promises to see him the following day, leaving the man alone with his thoughts. He watches her leave, deeply suspicious of what the young child is actually planning. He reflects on how unusual it is for a child to prioritize feeding an adult medicine over playing. He finds it particularly strange that she never mentions her own father during their interactions. The man reflects on his brother's poor state, doubting he is capable of caring for the girl. Despite his own struggles, he feels a surge of guilt seeing the bruises on her tiny wrists. He finds himself unable to sleep, clearly unsettled by the girl's persistence and attitude. The man walks alone down the sun-drenched corridor of the sprawling imperial mansion. Shimmering light surrounds Hukbirang as he contemplates the strange events of the morning. Narrations explain that he specifically remembers waking up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Looking out at the clear sky, he realizes with shock that it is already 5 in the evening. Hukbi-yu stands among the trees, suddenly struck by a strange and ominous feeling. She examines a handful of herbs, disappointed by the lack of quality in the local garden. She notes that the family's abandoned herb patches in the East Wing are far too neglected. She realizes she will soon need to visit the local market to find better medicinal ingredients. The girl looks toward the edge of the estate, contemplating the world beyond the walls. Narrations reveal that one of the Empire's top 3 medicinal markets lies just outside the estate. She wonders if her uncle would be willing to act as her guardian for the trip. A sudden, rhythmic thumping sounding as the girl senses someone approaching her at high speed. A sudden hey sounding as a massive cloud of dust erupts from the garden behind her. The man bellows at her as he charges through the trees in a state of high alarm. The girl looks back with wide eyes, completely startled by his aggressive and sudden pursuit. A sudden hey sounding as the small girl turns and begins to run away in a panic. Hukbi-yu flees through the woods while the man chases her with incredible determination. She shouts back that she is only running because he is chasing her so fiercely. A sharp whoosh sounding as the man makes a massive leap to intercept the fleeing girl. She panics as they head toward an inevitable collision in the center of the path. A soft thump sounding as the man catches her midair and hoists her high above him. The girl looks down at him in total surprise as he holds her securely in the air. Hukbirang grins as he continues to hoist the purple-haired girl high into the air. A sudden, sharp cough sounding as Hukbi-yu covers her mouth with her hand. A sudden, heavy coughing sounding as the man stares in shock at the girl's sudden illness. He asks if the child is all right while she explains she is out of breath from running. She calls him a fool for surprising her, while he questions why she came barging in. He realizes she fed him medicine, while she wonders if he finally understands the remedy's power. She is delighted that the man has finally acknowledged the effectiveness of her medicinal concoction. He marvels at the fact that she gave him the medicine intended for the protagonist's father. She prepares to tell him her story, while noting he is looking dazed and sleepy once more. A sudden, heavy thud sounding as the black-haired man collapses face first into the grass.
The young girl stares in absolute disbelief at the unconscious man lying before her.
She looks down at him and calls out to her uncle, but he remains unresponsive. A rhythmic snore sounding as the girl's face darkens with intense frustration at his timing. She rants internally about him falling asleep at such a critical moment in their conversation. The small girl screams at the top of her lungs about the story being interrupted. The majestic estate buildings stand tall against a clear and peaceful morning sky. Walking away, she grumbles about her misfortune and his ridiculous habit of falling asleep. Forced to proceed without his help, the young child walks through a large stone gateway alone. Narrations explain that she is heading toward the wing where her eldest uncle resides. Looking at the rooftops, she reflects on the physicians and warriors inhabiting the western wing. She envisions of family leaders and aunts she must eventually surpass to secure her future. Walking down the hallway, she resolves to win over the patients in the eastern wing first. Seeing a boy ahead, she considers how much easier her path would be with allies. She accidentally bumps into the boy, complaining about her bad luck with collisions. The black-haired boy in the purple robe turns around with a startled and surprised expression. This is Hook Ge-won, the son of her elder uncle and the girl's own cousin. The small girl offers a bright, cheerful greeting and introduces herself as his sister, Biyu. He is immediately suspicious and asks how the young child could possibly know his name. She explains their family connection and tells him she came specifically to visit him. Gaewon's gaze hardens as he asks what purpose she has for seeking him out. He asks if she is there to pick a fight with him like everyone else. He mocks her by suggesting they share a bond because both of their fathers are bedridden. He sharply tells her that he has nothing to discuss and demands that she leave immediately. He refuses to listen and tells her to manage her own father's illness herself. Biyu stands alone in the corridor as her cousin walks away without a second glance. She notes how harsh he is, despite her genuine desire to heal his father. She realizes she cannot approach her great-uncle without the support of Gaewon or her other uncle. As she walks through the garden, she is suddenly distracted by an argument nearby. She watches from a distance as a group of children confronts Gaewon on a walkway. She recognizes the boy leading the group as they tell Gaewon to give up. The bullies mock the boy by making dizzying motions and insulting his sick father. The ringleader of the bullies is identified as Hook Dae-wi, the son of her eldest aunt. The girl glares with a dark expression, remembering her previous encounters with the arrogant boy. Narrations describe the two paths for Hyuk children, healing others or becoming warriors who protect. Dae-wi rose to power by using his mother's influence to seize every available opportunity. She reflects on how ridiculous the events of her third run were in the past. Plucking thoughtful, she considers how strange many things were during that previous lifetime. Thorns surround the image of Hook An, who suddenly became very cautious during that time. After the grandmother died, the eldest aunt inherited her position, only to die shortly after. A sudden, loud crash sounding as a dark ceramic jar is shattered on the floor. Hook Biyu is yelled at by Hook Dae-wi, who mocks her for trying to abandon the family. The red-haired boy laughs as his group stands over a room in ruins, while Biyu reflects on how the family this bastard led interfered with her at every turn. A building burns under the night sky, as Biyu notes that, in the end, the Hook family fell to her cousin, Hook Gaewon. Biyu remembers that Gaewon was originally imprisoned early on for brutally assaulting Daewi's lackeys. She reflects on how Gaewon's father died from illness without care, leading to Gaewon becoming the protagonist's companion in the original novel. Biyu notes that in her third life, a person named Hook A-an disappeared, which threw the entire timeline off its path. Biyu remembers being too focused on escaping the family to notice everything, but she realizes there must be a reason why her third run diverged so sharply. Standing in the woods, she resolves to address the changes in this life as Gaewon tells her to quit picking a fight and leave. Daewi mocks Gaewon's appearance and dares the boy to try and punch him. Gaewon looks on with a dark and trembling expression while Daewi's group prepares to see just how crazy he really is. Biyu watches from behind the trees, worrying that things could turn bad if they are left alone. She knows that if things become violent, Gaewon will be the only one punished since he has no backing. A rhythmic tap-tap sounding as Biyu sprints toward the group, determined not to let him go to prison again. Biyu leaps onto the railing and shouts for Gaewon to hold on, announcing that his world-class physician sister has arrived to save him. Out of breath and clutching a branch in her teeth, Biyu asks if the group is really ganging up on just one person. Biyu gasps for air as a notification reveals the side effects of her heavenly power sprint, while Gaewon and Daewi stare in silence. Daewi asks who the runt is, while his friend identifies her as the daughter of the exiled Lord Hook-bi-hu. The boy explains Biyu's heritage, mentioning her father's marriage to a woman with colored eyes and purple hair. Daewi responds with a malicious grin, finding the information about her identity quite amusing. He laughs and asks if there's some kind of gathering for patients taking place today. Jaewon steps in front of Biyu and tells her to move aside because it is too dangerous for her. Biyu watches Gaewon's back, realizing that despite his harsh words, he is actually a very kind person. Biyu tells Gaewon to cover his mouth and jump back when she reaches the count of 3. A sudden 3 sounding as Biyu creates a distraction that causes the boys to cough. Gaewon and the other boys cover their faces as a thick cloud of smoke erupts around them. Daewi asks what is happening while Biyu notes with amazement that Gaewon jumped even farther than she expected. Biyu tells the panicking boy to stay calm, noting that a good assistant is always quick to understand. Biyu explains that she used hackberry fruit, pondering the saying that even something rotten can still have value. She tells the idiots that the fruit is used for smoke bomb fuel, but assumes they were too ignorant to know that. Biyu reveals that mixing the fruit with the sap from the stem creates a poisonous smoke. Daewi's group reacts with shock and terror as they realize they have been poisoned. The boys clutch their stomachs and scratch their itching skin as the poison takes effect. A furious Daewi demands to know what Biyu did, while she stands calmly amidst the fading smoke. Daewi lunges at Biyu in a rage, calling her a rat-sized punk as he tries to attack. A sudden tap sounding as Gaewon catches Daewi's arm mid-lunge to protect Biyu. Gaewon swings his leg in a powerful arc to counter the bully's attack. A loud crack sounding as Gaewon delivers a massive kick to his opponent. A sudden eek sounding as Daewi is sent crashing into the garden structures from the force of the blow. Surrounded by flowers, Biyu looks on with a smile as Gaewon stands beside her. The group carries Daewi away while urging him to get a hold of himself. Biyu calls out to them that chewing on pink shepherd's purse is the only way to get an antidote. Gaewon approaches the railing and asks the purple-haired girl if she is all right. Biyu reflects on how shaken the boy must be, noting that despite his composure, he is only 9 years old. A sudden drip sounding as Biyu prepares to reassure him, but blood begins to leak from her nose. Gaewon panics and asks the girl if she is also hurt somewhere. He holds Biyu's shoulders with a worried expression, asking if she is also sick. Biyu reflects on the fact that she was also hit by the poison smoke during the earlier distraction. A sudden smack sounding as Gye-won uses his sleeve to aggressively wipe the blood from her face. Gye-won tells Biyu to stop what she is doing, explaining that wiping off poison smoke is a basic necessity. Gye-won notices that her symptoms are unusual, concluding that she must have been sick before they even met. Black-haired Gye-won holds Biyu. He tells her to sniff, but she internally tells him to get lost. Biyu reflects on her body's natural self-healing ability. A sudden, loud screech sounding. Inside the room, Gye-won begins to speak. Gye-won asks if she really possesses a healing ability. Biyu confirms her intent to treat his father, surprising him. Biyu rants about her useless uncle while he sleeps. Gye-won states he understands everything now. Gye-won refuses her meeting with his father, confusing Biyu. The two children sit together in silence. Narrations describe madness as a disease of pure hunting instinct. Biyu notes how dangerous his father's killing intent has become. Flashbacks recall him as an amazing, lightning-wielding warrior. The room remains quiet as his two phases are explained. Gye-won promises she can meet him during a stable period. Biyu decides to return once the madness phase passes. Gye-won calls out for Biyu to wait a moment. Jae-won suggests she stay at his house instead. He reveals his secret lightning ability to the surprised girl. Clan rules require children with abilities to live in the main house. He has stayed hidden only to care for his sick father. Biyu recalls his original fate of awakening while in prison. The two cousins share a moment of quiet understanding. Gye-won insists she move in for her own benefit. A sudden, sharp shout sounding as Gye-won yells at the bratty girl. Biyu defends her messy room as they settle in together. A sudden, lively chirping sounding as a new day begins. Biyu enjoys the unexpectedly cozy life at Gye-won's place. Biyu is shocked by Gye-won's mastery over various household chores. She notes that his years of caregiving were not wasted. Biyu savors her first warm meal after surviving on grass. She reflects on why she avoids her biological father's residence. A sudden, loud thud sounding as someone slams the table. Biyu asks when they will finally go to see her uncle. The purple-haired girl looks up with a startled expression. Sunset paints the sky as she prepares to meet Hukbi-won. The majestic temple stands silent under the bright morning sky. Jae-won points out a red string lying on the floor. Biyu asks about the string, which is a secret signal. The signal confirms that his father has regained his consciousness. Biyu remembers the peak madness of this place in her first run. They walk through the garden to find him in his original state. Gye-won spots his father standing deep within the trees. A sudden, heavy flinch sounding as the children face his terrifying aura. Biyu's eyes widen as she notices blood on the grass. The dark-haired man stands alone, his condition appearing unstable. They realize they are in trouble because his eyes are unfocused. A sudden, swift dash sounding as the father lunges forward. A sudden, massive boom sounding as Gye-won protects the girl. A sudden, sliding crash sounding as the two children tumble away. The dark-haired man lands with a sudden, powerful impact that shatters the stone beneath him. A sudden, resonant boom sounding as Gye-won tells Biyu to move, while the madman stares them down with bloodshot eyes. A horrific memory shows the man standing in a blood-soaked room amidst fallen warriors. Gye-won flees into the woods while carrying the purple-haired girl to safety. A sudden, violent crash sounding as the powerful man strikes the ground right where the children were standing. Gye-won continues his desperate escape through the forest with Biyu in his arms. Biyu frantically asks Gye-won to use water to attack, but the boy insists he is incapable of doing so. Gaewon angrily explains that he is only a healer, while Biyu wonders why the situation has become so dire. Looking at the blood on the grass, Biyu wonders why the man's madness has not ended as she expected. Gaewon remembers placing a signal string at the entrance, while Biyu tells him to stay calm. Gaewon explains that they need specific medicine to deal with his father, but making it requires time they do not have. The sweating boy asks Biyu how many seconds she can hold out against the terrifying warrior. Biyu unleashes her power, causing a massive, swirling vortex of water to erupt around them. The madman stands unfazed as the torrential water surges toward him. The rushing water completely envelops the man in a massive, transparent sphere. Gaewon watches in awe as Biyu successfully traps his father within the liquid prison. Gaewon expresses his shock, while Biyu warns that she cannot maintain the technique for much longer. Biyu grits her teeth in frustration as the heavy strain of her power begins to show. Gaewon regrets his lack of power and wishes his uncle were there, just as a sudden, loud scream echoes through the air. The boy admits his lack of confidence, noting he has never lasted more than 3 exchanges against his father. Gaewon draws his sword as purple lightning begins to crackle violently around his body. Determined to try, Gaewon lunges forward with his blade wreathed in electric energy. The water trap explodes outward as Won breaks free from Biyu's technique. Gaewon lets out a fierce battle cry as he charges toward the mad warrior. A sudden, deafening crash, sounding as Gaewon clashes head-on with his father's overwhelming strength. The two clashing opponents are locked in a high-stakes struggle of lightning and raw power. Biyu watches from the side, amazed that Gaewon is fighting better than she anticipated. Gaewon groans in pain as he barely manages to block a punishing kick from Won. Biyu realizes with horror that the man was likely holding back his true strength until now. Won delivers a devastating blow that sends the young boy flying backward through the air. Biyu screams out for Gaewon as the madman turns his murderous gaze toward her. The powerful warrior makes a swift, blurred dash directly at the defenseless girl. Biyu stares up in terror, realizing the insanity of the situation as her life flashes before her eyes. She realizes she has no way to dodge the impending attack from the legendary warrior. Gaewon yells for his father to stop as Biyu braces for the strike with her eyes shut tight. Biyu is suddenly surrounded by floating droplets of water that seem to shield her from harm. The purple-haired girl opens her eyes and looks around in confusion at the shimmering water. Strong arms of water reach out and firmly restrain Won, pinning his limbs to his sides. Biyu notes that the elemental matchup is finally turning in their favor. A long-haired man in blue robes appears amidst blooming flowers, complaining about waking up to such a chaotic scene. Biyu is stunned to see her father, Hookbi Hu, standing before her in the forest. Biyu wonders how he is awake when he should be asleep for days, while Hu casually greets his daughter. Hu poses dramatically among roses, asking Biyu if he looks cool for saving her at the perfect moment. Biyu watches her father's antics, concluding that the man is a total narcissist. A sudden, low growl sounding as the restrained Won struggles against Hu's powerful water binding. Hu stands calmly as water swirls around his feet, completely controlling the battlefield. Hu boasts about his importance as a massive tidal wave of water rises behind him. Using the swirling currents, Hu gently pulls Biyu away from the danger zone. A sudden, echoing roar sounding as one rages while Biyu watches in silence. Hu stands at the center of a majestic water display, noting that his mastery is far beyond her own. Hook B. Hu recognizes that his water magic is primarily suited for combat, as he is identified as the premier water sorcerer of his clan. The dark-haired man lets out a frustrated sigh as the pressure of the battle begins to mount. Hu reflects on the elemental disadvantage of his water against Wan's lightning, while Biyu watches the standoff from a distance. Biyu confidently declares she has found a solution, when Hu admits he cannot restrain his deranged brother for much longer. Hu agrees to distract the warrior, as Biyu explains that he only needs to buy her a few precious moments. Biyu realizes what she must do and begins her part of the plan. A sudden resonant boom sounding as a powerful lightning strike crashes against the water sphere, causing Biyu to scream in terror. A sudden liquid splash sounding as the force of the lightning strike sends Hu reeling backward, while Biyu looks on in shock. Hu acknowledges the surprising quality of the medicine Biyu provided as he prepares for another exchange. The master sorcerer remains poised within his swirling water defense, maintaining control of the immediate area. Biyu sprints toward Gaewon, calling out his name while the forest echoes with the sounds of combat. Baia's hand holds a delicate pink poppy she retrieved from the surrounding garden. Jaewon looks stunned as the purple-haired girl confirms she has the necessary component. Gaewon hoists Biyu onto his back and flees, following her directions through the dense foliage. Narrations describe the garden as a deliberate trap filled with poisonous herbs used for producing dangerous narcotics. A sudden rushing splash sounding as the children observe the two powerful elemental users clashing in the distance. Hu and Wan unleash their respective powers, creating massive displays of water and lightning that fill the forest. Hu reaches out toward his older brother with an expression of intense desperation. A sudden, agonized cry sounding as Wan is caught within a restrictive water prison created by Wan. Hu expresses his fury that Wan would rather fight his own family than recover his senses. The sorcerer curses the tragic fate that has caused all of his brothers to fall ill with the same madness. A memory recalls the three most outstanding martial artists of the clan, all suffering from incurable and debilitating conditions. Narration suggests the clan is on the path to ruin as the curse of the parents threatens to pass down to the children. Hu wonders if the terrifying illness is a hereditary burden they are all doomed to carry. A sudden, heavy slam sounding as someone kicks a table in anger during a tense gathering from the past. The group sits in terrified silence as a voice demands to know what was just said about the clan's future. The dark-haired man stands alone, his eyes shadowed with an intensity that hints at his unstable state. A sudden crimson splatter sounding as the man's violent reaction leaves those around him pleading for mercy. Narrations describe Hu's dwindling hope for his brother's recovery, while Wan was confined to the eastern side of the estate. Hu sees a flicker of hope as he notices that Wan's body is finally showing signs of physical recovery. A sudden crashing impact sounding as Hu and Wan lock hands in a direct test of raw strength. Hu vows to protect Biyu, knowing she is the only one capable of saving his brother from his disease. Hu realizes that Wan is a genius who can potentially cure the illness if they can just keep him alive. A sudden, sharp strike, sounding as Hu demands his brother snap out of the madness and recognize him. Gaewon and Biyu call out to the man from their position behind the trees. Biyu takes a determined stance as she prepares to intervene in the fight. Ha yells for Wan to take his attack as he makes a final desperate charge. A close-up reveals a large syringe filled with a mysterious golden fluid held tightly in Hu's hand. Hu recalls the instructions to aim for an artery as he closes the distance between them. The sorcerer feels a momentary wave of confusion as he tries to identify the correct target on Wan's body. Who decides to simply jam the needle into his brother's neck while dodging another powerful blow. The needle successfully pierces the skin, delivering the full dose of the potent sedative. A sudden heavy thud sounding as Juan's body goes limp and he collapses onto the forest floor. Hu stands over his fallen brother with a stunned and dazed look on his face. The children rush over, amazed that the terrifying warrior has finally been subdued. Biu proudly announces that she used a highly potent anesthetic she formulated herself. The scene shifts to the quiet, moonlit garden as the group recovers from the chaos. One is shown lying on the ground, bound tightly by thick ropes to ensure he remains under control. Gaewon asks if the sedative is truly safe as they gather together inside the pavilion. Biu thinks about Wan's extreme toughness while explaining that she accounted for his high tolerance when making the medicine. Hu asks Biu where her confidence comes from, while she proudly claims to be a genius, remembering how she treated her great-uncle in a past life. Hu pinches the girl's cheek in disbelief, prompting a sharp cry of pain until Giwon intervenes and tells his uncle to let go. Gaewon formally greets his uncle, noting how much time has passed since their last meeting, while Hu looks on with annoyance. Biu's relentless chatter causes Hu to clutch his head in frustration as he struggles to process her explanation. Hu eventually gives up and collapses onto the floor in exhaustion, while the two children watch him in silence. The bound warrior slowly opens his red eyes and wonders if he has finally passed away, as the purple-haired girl watches him closely. Wan gazes at Biu and marvels at the sight of a cute baby fairy sitting right in front of him. The restrained man questions if he is still alive, as Biu observes that he seems like a completely different person when he isn't in a rage. A sudden quick tap sounding as Hu and Gaewon realize the man is awake, calling out to him as their brother and father. Gaewon anxiously asks if his father is all right, and Wan responds with a warm smile, confirming his well-being. Wan tells his son not to cry, lamenting that he cannot comfort him properly because his hands are currently tied. The warrior playfully teases Gaewon about being a crybaby, while the boy insists that the situation was genuinely terrifying. Wan laughs as he recalls his mother's threat to end him if he hurt anyone else, prompting Hu to question his brother's sense of humor. Wan offers a casual greeting to his younger brother, but Hu dismisses the pleasantries, noting that now is hardly the time for them. Wan expresses confusion over his lack of physical strength, leading Hu to explain that it is the direct result of the anesthetic. The man groans about his aching joints and inability to move, causing Biu to wonder if this goofy personality is his normal state. Biu thinks to herself that the dosage she used was strong enough to drop a super elephant, so it is natural he cannot move. She reflects on the legendary power of the dragon's blessing, which grants those of the eastern continent bodies of immense durability and strength. Biu considers how the western continent has a similar deity-like respect for their own dragons and the blessings they provide. Narrations explain that the Hyuk family specifically trains these blessed individuals to become the clan's most elite warriors. Biu looks back on her third life and remembers the one person she was truly able to call a friend. A sudden, quick rustle sounding as Wan rolls his body over to get a better look at the small girl sitting nearby. One is struck by curiosity and asks who the tiny baby fairy is that has been watching him this whole time. Biu introduces herself by her full name, Hook Biu, while One responds with an amused and playful nickname. Biu worries that the man might resent her for the drug, but Gaewon loudly proclaims that she is the one who saved him. Gaewon excitedly explains that Biu is Hu's daughter and intends to cure Wan's illness, much to the girl's internal panic. A sudden cold shiver sounding as Wan smiles at the realization that the fairy is real, leaving Biu paralyzed with fear. a sudden soft swish sounding as BU pleads for him to stop the nickname, only for Won to dismissively call her Chirpy instead. A sudden gentle pat sounding as Won places his hand on the young girl's head in a surprisingly tender gesture. BU's eyes go wide with shock as she processes the unexpected and affectionate touch from the legendary warrior. BU hesitantly asks if he is angry with her, but Won simply smiles and wonders why she would ever think that. Won expresses his gratitude for not hurting anyone, though he jokingly teases Hu about not being able to roast him. The man becomes somber as he realizes he likely would have harmed his own son, a fate he wants to avoid above all else. Won continues to pat BU's head while she stands before him, lost in thought as she gazes up at him. BU is struck by his refreshing and uncalculated attitude, finding it entirely different from what she expected. One reflects on a lifetime of being treated as a mere tool by his family, making this moment feel incredibly strange to him. One asks Chirpy if she truly intends to cure both him and Rang, and the girl firmly confirms her mission. The warrior strokes his chin in thought, admitting his gratitude, while noting there is still one thing he does not understand. One looks at the small girl and asks the group why she chose to start her efforts with them. A sudden heavy thud, sounding as the name of her father, Hook Bihu, echoes through BU's mind. A sudden rushing breeze, sounding as the scene shifts to a serene pavilion overlooking a pond in the forest. Narrations describe Hook Bihu as BU's father, who suffered the same fate as his brothers and was confined to the eastern wing. BU reflects on the original story where her father died young for unknown reasons, despite her initial lack of interest in seeking him out. She recalls the simple happiness she felt just knowing she had a father when she was first reborn. Memories of her life in Korea reveal that she was once a lonely orphan with no family of her own. BU remembers the long years she spent waiting while enduring abuse and living as a slave in a previous existence. The young girl used to cling to the hope that her father would eventually find her and save her from her suffering. She sadly reflects on the fact that she never once met her father during the course of her first life. In her second life, BU desperately asks her sister if she managed to deliver the letter she wrote to their father. Her sister's face is obscured as she tells BU to listen closely to the message their father sent back in response. BU's eyes widen in shock as she is told her father claims he has no daughter. Sitting alone in the pavilion, BU reflects on her fourth life and decides she has no room for a father who failed to help her. Looking toward Hugh and Gaewon, the girl resolves to focus on returning home rather than caring about a father who might as well not exist. BU considers the real reason she wanted to save her uncle and why she sought Hugh out first. Turning to the man, BU smiles while explaining that she remembers his past kindness, even if he has forgotten it. A dark memory surfaces as people scream for everyone to get out of the way of a looming threat. Amidst the chaos of the past, the clan shouts that Hyuk Biwan is rampaging and orders the monster to be confined. A sudden rough grab, sounding as a man's hand seizes the arm of the young, terrified past BU. The adults surround the girl, confirming that she possesses excellent healing abilities and demanding she put them to use. They push past BU toward the source of the danger, ordering the small child to go and stop the rampaging warrior alone. A blood-stained Won clutches his head in agony, warning everyone to get back while past BU watches with wide, trembling eyes. A sudden, sharp splash, sounding as blood covers the floorboards, while a desperate voice calls for them to hurry. Narration explains the family used BU as a scapegoat. The girl cries in pain, while Won, regaining his senses, laments how young she is. Won cradles the battered girl in his arms, weeping as he realizes the magnitude of the tragedy they have both endured. The warrior tells the child she has no need to apologize, declaring the family's cruelty for not even letting her die peacefully. One sits in silence on a blood-splattered floor, surrounded by the fallen bodies of those who perished in his madness. Back in the present, Biyu looks at her family and thinks that her uncle was the only person who was ever truly warm to her. Smiling brightly, the girl tells Hugh that she wants to face the situation and help this time, despite his disbelief that he wouldn't remember her. One is struck by her charm, remarking that he would never forget such a pretty child, though Gye-won finds the comment shameless. Who points a finger at himself, demanding to know why Biyu came to him first if one was the one she truly liked. Biyu breaks into a nervous sweat and offers the weak excuse that she only came to him in passing. Who complains about being treated like a mere side dish until Biyu fakes a cough to avoid answering further. A sudden, quick turn, sounding as Hugh asks his brother if the girl's behavior doesn't seem entirely absurd to him. One places a hand on Hu's shoulder and tells him to believe her, noting that he woke up in only 3 days thanks to her. The warrior confirms that Biyu is the real deal, having proven her mastery over the mysterious illness. One gazes intensely at the group, predicting they are witnessing a genius who will become the greatest in the entire country. Sitting together in the pavilion, Wan addresses the girl as Chirpy and asks what she wants in return for treating him. The legendary warrior smiles kindly at Biyu as she prepares to state her conditions. Biyu takes a bold stance and asks the two men to become her guardians and escort her to the medicinal market. One looks down in thought, realizing he has formed a tie with a future legend and deciding it is time for the next step. Biyu glows with ambition, declaring her goal to become the greatest physician under heaven. Wan becomes somber and explains that both he and his youngest brother caused serious trouble long ago by harming someone. A sudden, heavy thud sounding as Biyu reacts with shock to the news that they are both forbidden from leaving the estate. Ku looks away in frustration, explaining that their bodies are marked with a tracking scent that ensures immediate capture if they leave. Biyu's world crumbles as she realizes her plan to secure warriors for her trip to the market has failed. The girl asks if there is really no other way to go, and Wan looks at her, suggesting that a solution might exist. Biyu is overcome with dread, realizing that the way involves encountering the one person she has spent her whole life trying to avoid. A sudden, heavy grunt sounding as the girl struggles with all her might to pull a stubborn herb from the garden soil. A sudden, loud cry sounding as Biyu falls onto her back when the plant finally gives way and comes out of the ground. The purple-haired girl holds her head and screams in total frustration as her plans continue to hit obstacles. Biyu rants about the need for high-quality ingredients from the market, while Giwan and Rong look on with sheepish apologies. She worries that going out alone in a 3-year-old body would only lead to her being kidnapped by groups targeting the clan's healing gifts. Hu stands over the girl with a blank expression while she continues to grumble about not becoming the world's greatest doctor. Hu asks what she is doing rolling around on the ground, prompting a startled response from the frustrated child. The man teases her about wriggling around like an earthworm, while Biyu blames the entire situation on her uncle. Giwan walks through the garden with a stern expression, noticing the commotion between his uncle and the girl. Biyu retaliates by pinching Hu's cheek with her tiny hands while he holds her up and asks what she thinks she is doing. Jaewon scolds Hugh for his rough behavior, reminding him that Biyu is only 3 and that he shouldn't have pinched her back. Hu insists he will be a warm gentleman for his own daughter, though Biyu watches him with a highly skeptical and unimpressed look. Giwon asks if Hu would rather talk with one instead of him, as the warrior's intimidating shadow looms behind the terrified man. Biyu notes the boy's discomfort around his uncle while he grumbles about the man's unfair tactics. A sudden rushing breeze sounding as sunlight filters through the lush and dense forest canopy. Biyu sits with the group and asks if her father is the only one capable of performing the task. The girl grows desperate and blunt as she stares directly at the man in the brown robes. The black-haired man laughs and denies her request, leaving the young girl completely speechless. Hu explains that her father has the power to transfer legal guardian rights over to them. The man notes this would finally allow them to negotiate directly with the rest of the family. Biyu reflects on her deep reluctance to see her father after 3 days of constant thought. Hu suggests Biyu leave the hard herb gathering to the high-energy boy standing beside her. Gaewon looks at the girl and acknowledges she saved many people beyond just his immediate family. The boy calls her his benefactor, reminding Biyu of how she saved him from a dark fate. A sudden, soft pat sounding as the boy places his hand gently on the young girl's head. Biyu gazes up at the boy as the atmosphere between them becomes remarkably quiet and serious. The girl is startled by a noise as a tiny, fluffy creature suddenly appears in the air. A sudden, sharp chirp sounding as a small, round, bird-like creature floats near the group. Hugh catches the falling puffball in his hand, much to the girl's wide-eyed surprise. Biyu and Thu stare in shock at the creature, while soft feathers drift through the air. A sudden soft chirp sounding as the round creature lands squarely on Biyu's chest. Biyu realizes the creature is a divine beast manifested from the user's natural lightning power. Narrations explain that divine beasts are manifestations of an exceptionally strong user's natural power. Biyu recalls other divine beasts while the group discusses the boy's unexpected companion. The girl sweats nervously as she imagines the chaos of a rampaging man and beast combined. Hu handles the chirping creature, noting that he hadn't known Gaewon possessed a divine beast. Gaewon looks away in silence, his secret companion having never appeared in the original story. Hu questions why the boy is pretending not to see the creature calling for him. The boy remains distant, explaining that he did not choose to summon the beast. Hu expresses disbelief that the boy would reject a gift that others would kill for. Hu explains the beast needs trust to grow, but Gaewon insists he already knows everything. Biyu looks on in confusion as she asks her uncle to explain the boy's behavior. Narration notes that divine beasts grant immense power, only if their owners accept their existence. Hugh cradles the shivering, fluffy creature in his palm as it lets out a weak sound. The man tells the boy he is discarding his fortune, though the boy insists he isn't rejecting it. Gaewon shouts in distress that he simply cannot face his own power, even if he wanted to. Hu and Biyu realize the boy is terrified of causing harm if he loses control. A dark and menacing shadow of a rampaging warrior looms over the small, trembling boy. Hu concludes the boy fears that gaining a divine beast would only increase the potential carnage. The boy stands paralyzed as the ominous silhouette of his father's madness haunts his mind. Hu questions the certainty of the family's madness being a hereditary condition. The man becomes somber as he admits his own fear of passing the disease to his daughter. Biyu stands quietly between the two, processing the heavy weight of her family's fears. Hu looks at the girl and asks why she is wasting time worrying about something so trivial. A sudden, firm thump sounding as Biyu strikes a determined pose with absolute confidence. Biyu glows with pride as she proclaims herself to be the genius physician they need. Memories of her past medical success surface as she compares current cases to her previous work. The girl remains confident in her plan to gather ingredients from the market and heal everyone. Biu reassures her family that everything is under control and they have no reason to worry. The girl teases the boy about her success in treating the sleepy warrior's incurable illness. Biu tells Gyewan that her true abilities will continue to surprise him. A sudden, soft stroke sounding as the girl's tiny fingers gently pet the fluffy divine beast. Biu offers the creature back to the boy while surrounded by a field of blooming flowers. The black-haired boy is stunned by the offer. Biu observes that Gyewan does not suffer from madness despite the darkness in his future. The girl hugs the boy's leg tightly. Gyewan confesses that he was too afraid of his own power to accept the divine beast's sudden appearance in his life. Who recalls the physician's warning that the father's madness might be a hereditary condition affecting the children. Holding the fluffy companion, the boy realizes he no longer fears the future illness thanks to the creature's presence. Gyewan tells Biu she is extraordinary and will eventually need many strong warriors to protect her. The boy strokes the creature's head, promising he will become stronger so his partner never has to disappear. Surrounded by blooming flowers, the boy vows to face his divine partner head-on from now on. He promises the fluffy beast he won't turn away. Biu reflects on the lore of divine beasts being life partners bound to their ability users. She recalls the tragedy of the previous timeline, where Gyewan denied the beast and eventually destroyed it himself. Hu watches the boy with a smile, remarking that seeing a patient recover is a wonderful experience. Gyewan irritably tells his uncle not to touch him while Biu watches from the grass. Biu's attention is captured by the creature. The girl asks the chirping creature if its small sounds are its way of expressing gratitude. Thinking of her past, Biu dismisses the need to worry about a father who was never truly present. The girl decides to face her challenge. Hu pats the boy's head as Gyewan announces that his mind is finally made up. Standing before a tall figure, Biu calls out to her father for the first time. Sunlight fades over the traditional estate rooftops. Biu begins her journey through the woods. A sudden, heavy sigh sounding as the girl pauses alone on the forest path. Gyewan and Hu are visibly shocked as they watch the young girl walk away. Biu reaches a stream and reflects on how she barely managed to stop the men from following her. She recalls her previous lives, noting that her father never once came to look for her throughout any of them. Memories of her mother's early death and her father's continued indifference weigh heavily on her mind. Biu resolves to maintain a cold and detached perspective as she prepares to encounter her father. The girl's expression turns sharp and determined. Narration describes the massive cherry blossom tree standing at the end of the abandoned Eastern District. A sudden, soft rustle sounding as petals fall around a man sitting calmly beneath the great tree. The man is revealed to have long black hair, red eyes, and a loosely worn dark blue robe. He looks down at the purple-haired girl and remarks that she is a pretty little baby. Biu identifies the man as the father who has abandoned her across 4 different lifetimes. The girl offers a simple hello. Biu stands with a grumpy, unimpressed expression. The man turns his gaze toward the girl. The man demands to know her identity, while Biu is privately stunned by his massive size and tries to stay serious. The tiny child and the towering man face each other amidst the falling pink petals. Biu repeats her claim that she is his daughter, leaving the man visibly bewildered. The man denies having a daughter and scolds the girl for making such a disgraceful claim. Biu suggests his illness has caused his memory to fail, making him forget his wife, parents, and siblings. Narration describes the man's disease as a condition where his memory regresses and he becomes blank and dazed. The girl stands her ground and declares that his inability to remember her no longer matters. Biu demands that he take responsibility for her since he is the one who fathered her. The man admits he might have once heard a rumor that he was a married man. A sudden rushing wind sounding as the girl is lifted from the ground. Powerful currents of air swirl around the man and the floating child as he unleashes his power. Biu realizes she is witnessing the incredible strength of the legendary wind sorcerer firsthand. The scene shifts back to the estate buildings as the group discusses the father's unique ability. Confused by her question, the black-haired man admits he has never seen the object she's asking about, even once. The man questions how the purple-haired girl has been living alone all this time, finding the situation nonsensical. He mentions his eldest brother and notes that the girl's uncle went back into seclusion because he wasn't completely stable yet. Biu finds the man uncomfortable and feels like he can see right through everything. Tired of the delays, the girl threatens to leave unless he finally starts telling her the truth. A sudden dry throat sounding as the man begins explaining that the father possesses the power to handle wind. He describes the father as incredibly strong and isolated, warning that he likely won't recognize Biu or her mother. Biu insists that he should at least remember being married, but the man claims he simply cannot recall it. A sudden, quick turn sounding as the man gives up on the explanation and turns away. A sudden, rushing wind sounding as the man unleashes his power, swirling petals around the girl and telling her to see for herself. The girl remains calm, thinking she would have been shocked by his ability if she hadn't already known about it. Looking over the landscape, the girl is surprised to find a pond hidden in such a place. Biu considers using the pond if things go wrong, while the black-haired man asks if she truly claims to be his daughter. Biu stands resolute amidst the wind. The girl explains she was surprised by his portrait and looks like her mother, but the man dismisses her claims as useless nonsense. He assumes he looks pitiful enough for people to use children to run scams on him. The man bluntly denies being her father, regardless of why she approached him. A sudden, loud shout sounding as Biu calls him trash and threatens to knock him into the pond. Proclaiming herself a physician and apothecary, the girl warns the man that he will regret his current attitude. The man mocks her for being a brat, but Biu insists she doesn't lie and offers to prove her identity. A sudden sliding sound as the girl pulls out a wooden paternity tester to provide proof. She explains that dropping their blood on the device will turn it blue if they are of the same bloodline and black if not. With a triumphant smile, the girl holds up the paternity tester, which has turned a clear blue. Biu reflects on how common illegitimate child issues make such reagents easy to find, even outside of her previous world. The man suggests the device can be faked, but the girl tells him to look for himself and see the truth. Accepting her as his bloodline due to her reckless behavior, the man's comment strikes Biu as incredibly sarcastic. The girl moves on to her main goal, telling the man that their relation is not the primary topic she wants to discuss. Biu glows with confidence as she declares her intention to cure her father's long-standing illness. She asks the man to make a contract and become her legal guardian to help her facilitate the treatment. A sudden splashing sound as the girl's power manifests in a swirling torrent of water bubbles. A sudden soft trickle sounding as the girl demonstrates her medical abilities with the water. Biu asks if he is finally convinced of her skills as a physician after witnessing her display. A sudden forward lunge sounding as the man leans in close and demands that she diagnose him immediately. Startled by the sudden request, the girl stares into his red eyes and asks if he means right now. A sudden water spray sounding as the air fills with splashing droplets and bubbles. A sudden, gentle rippling sounding as the man is encased in a massive sphere of water for the diagnosis. Biu concentrates as she begins her scan. The girl worries that her ability will only show her ingredients and mixtures just like it did for her uncles. Light and water swirl around the man. The girl is shocked to find that her diagnosis reveals absolutely nothing within the man's body. Panic sets in as Biu realizes no ingredients or mixtures are appearing in her mind at all. Narration explains that such empty results usually only appear for the dead or in cases of incurable diseases from her past life. The girl grows pale as she wonders if this means the man is beyond her ability to treat. A sudden, sharp gasp sounding as Biu covers her mouth, realizing her internal shock is visible on her face. A sudden, light chuckle sounding as the man smiles knowingly while surrounded by the swirling water. A sudden, swirling surge sounding as the massive water bubble begins to collapse and flow away. A sudden, rhythmic dripping sounding as the man stands drenched and calm following the failed diagnosis. Looking at her disappointed expression, the man correctly guesses that she saw no answer for his condition. He tells her that in the end, she is just like all the others who failed, and orders her to go back home. The man promises not to hold her false claim against her, leaving Biu standing alone in the fading light. Biu insists that she is telling the truth and maintains that her skills as a physician are genuine. The purple-haired girl looks at the man with an expression of intense frustration. Biu argues that she really is his daughter and questions why she would ever lie about their connection. The girl reflects on her urgent need to visit the local market for medicinal ingredients and other important matters. Standing before the massive man, Biu resolves to persuade him regardless of his initial rejection. Biu bluntly labels the man a terrible father and expresses hope that he will one day understand the gravity of his neglect. A sudden, soft swish sounding as the purple-haired girl turns her back on the man. Biu suddenly sprints away toward the edge of the nearby pond while the man watches in surprise. The girl shouts back that he truly is her father while continuing her reckless dash. Reaching the water's edge, Biu notes that the pond appears remarkably clean. A sudden, loud splash sounding as the young girl leaps headfirst into the deep pond. Sinking into the depths, Biu is amazed by the clarity and purity of the underwater environment. The girl realizes she can use the clean water to her advantage as she spots the man's blurry silhouette above. A sudden, powerful burst sounding as Biu surfaces with a loud gasp while the man catches her. Drenched and shivering, the man coughs and scolds the girl for jumping into such a deceptively deep pool of water. Despite her soaking wet clothes, Biu offers the man a bright and triumphant smile. Biu acknowledges that he saved her and retracts her previous comment about him being trash. The girl asks the man to hold her under the water again for just a few moments. A sudden, gentle swish sounding as Biu prepares for a second, more purposeful immersion. A sudden, rushing flow sounding as the man lowers the purple-haired girl back into the pond. Submerged once more, Biu begins to channel her energy, while the man watches with growing curiosity. A sudden, shimmering hum, sounding as a majestic water spirit, manifests within a celestial frame. A sudden, massive roar, sounding as a giant torrent of water, surges around the father and daughter. A sudden, heavy rush, sounding as the water churns violently during the girl's activation of power. Under the surface, the man stares at Biu with wide, startled eyes as she begins her work. Biu reaches out and holds the man close while they float together in the blue depths. The purple-haired girl gives a small, confident nod and announces that the treatment is beginning. Narration explains Biyu's first unique ability is the power to heal her own physical wounds using water. Her second ability allows her to accurately diagnose any patient and immediately identify the necessary ingredients for a cure. A sudden, deep resonance sounding as a spiritual tree appears within the underwater realm. The man realizes that the numerous leaves on the glowing tree represent his total remaining lifespan. Biyu ponders the massive amount of energy required to completely cure such a deep-seated illness. A sudden, soft rustle, sounding as petals drift through the water during her intense calculations. The girl realizes that attempting a total cure would cost her own life. Biyu decides that focus on improvement rather than a complete cure is her only viable option. A sudden, bright flash sounding as the girl places her hand on the man's forehead to restore his memories. A flashback reveals a younger version of the man urgently asking to leave the estate. The man's elder brother refuses the request, stating he has his own reasons for needing to go out first. A sudden, sharp tsk sounding as the older brother teases him about visiting a certain woman. The black-haired man blushes and smiles while thinking of the woman he loves. A memory surfaces of the purple-haired woman asking that their daughter's name include a specific character. The man's memory shows him standing beside his beautiful wife in a sunlit garden. Submerged in the water, Biyu acknowledges that her mother was far more beautiful than her. The vision shows the purple-haired woman happily cradling her pregnant belly. A sudden, loud crash sounding as the massive water manifestation finally collapses. The black-haired man stands drenched and stunned in the real world as the memories flood back. Biyu asks how the treatment felt while the man looks at her with a completely transformed perspective. A formal announcement seeks new translators, proofreaders, and editors to join the production team. The man notes that no one in their family has ever possessed talent quite like hers. A sudden, soft shh sounding as Biyu winks and calls her incredible powers a trade secret. A narrative text reveals Biyu's ultimate trade secret is the ability to cure incurable diseases at the heavy cost of her own lifespan. Submerged in the pond, Biyu reflects on the incredible danger she would face if anyone discovered her secret healing abilities. The purple-haired girl recalls having used this power only once before and feels deeply moved to have seen her mother's face in the vision. Biyu grows serious as she identifies a concerning aspect of the treatment process. Narration explains that as the memories of the mother surfaced, the black-haired man's consciousness momentarily faded away. Holding the man in the water, Biyu wonders if his illness prevented him from seeing the memories, while the man acknowledges her proven talent. Lifting the girl in his arms, the man questions why she went to such lengths just to prove her medical ability to him. Biyu offers a small, mischievous smile. Standing amidst the lily pads, the girl declares her intention to travel to the main house of the Hook family. Biyu explains that she seeks recognition and refuses to be abandoned, framing their relationship as a formal contract and transaction. The purple-haired girl promises to heal him occasionally in exchange for his help with her goals. As she floats in the water, Biyu thinks about how much more effective her healing will become once she grows older. Narration suggests that the girl's current physical form is ultimately temporary and will eventually serve its purpose. A vision shows an older version of the physician healing her father, explaining that she can use her final lifespan to cure him entirely. The black-haired man looks down with a vulnerable expression and softly asks her to help him. Standing in the pond, the man asks for her name, while the girl reacts with mild surprise. He looks directly at her and repeats the question, reminding her that she claimed to be his daughter. The purple-haired girl beams and introduces herself as Hook Biyu. The man notes that despite the many physicians he has met, Bai is the first to provide even a hint of medical improvement. He remarks that having such a young physician makes him feel as though he is being influenced by a spirit, while Bu remains silent. Narration clarifies that while the father's illness has temporarily improved, the underlying symptoms are far from gone. The man suggests they speak more comfortably, since he will likely forget the conversation, prompting Bai to reveal she is from another world. In a stylized thought exchange, the man asks if she was assigned to him because of her own sickness, but Bu insists she is perfectly healthy. He admits such a story is impossible to believe, but ultimately agrees to help her. Placing a gentle hand on her head, the man promises to grant her wish. Serene flowers bloom as Bu reflects that this was the only story she heard about her parents during this specific cycle of her life. The scene shifts to the man walking through a lush forest as time passes. A beautiful tree with pink blossoms stands tall under a clear blue morning sky. The black-haired man sits peacefully under the flowering tree from sunrise until sunset. Fragmented memories swirl as he describes how strange thoughts enter his mind and vanish quickly, leaving him in a state of lethargy. He wonders about the identity of the mysterious woman he sees in his mind, shrouded behind layers of pink silk. The woman behind the curtains playfully refuses to reveal her gender or secrets to him. An explosive vision of dark energy manifests as he struggles to identify the woman as either his mother or a family head. In a harsh memory, a woman screams a demand that Hook Bi-hoo must be killed immediately. Sitting in her chambers, the elder family head worries that if the man loses his memories, he will become a dangerous enemy to them all. A man in red suggests brainwashing him since his mind is currently empty, a plan the elder woman seems to consider. A sudden, heavy boom sounding as a figure collapses onto the dark ground. The black-haired man stands alone among the bodies of several assassins, noting they always arrive just as his memories begin to fade. He wonders which of his relatives sent the killers this time, suspecting his sister, brother-in-law, or even the family head herself. The pond remains still and empty. Bai smiles while being held in the water, asking how he liked the treatment before reminding him to keep it a secret. The man looks forward with renewed clarity and determination. Looking over the traditional estate, the man thinks of the name Hyuk Bi-yu and acknowledges her as his daughter. A sudden melodic chirp-chirp sounding as morning light washes over the quiet courtyard. Bai wakes up in her bed, feeling exhausted from the events of the previous evening. She remembers being excited about the contract with her father as she walked back home. The girl realizes she used up all her energy and collapsed, noting that her child-sized body is still physically weak. Bu wonders who brought her back to the room when she is interrupted by a cheerful greeting from nearby. The purple-haired girl screams in shock as a black-haired woman leans in with a bright, happy smile. Bu asks what she is doing there, but the woman simply claims to be observing her. Holding his face in his hands, the black-haired man explains he wanted to see their benefactor now that he is in a fully stable phase. Bai shivers and thinks about how uneasy she feels whenever this person smiles. As the girl tries to retreat, the man scoops her up and asks why she is trying to dodge him. Bu shouts for her uncle to stop, but he tells her not to use that title. Looking at her with a gentle smile, the man insists she call him Big Uncle. He repeats the request, telling her she should call him Uncle. Bai stares blankly and wonders what he is talking about. The girl tells him to let go and declares she will call him whatever she wants. The man pulls her into a joyous hug, exclaiming that he will give her whatever she wants. He jokingly offers his son as part of a bundle deal, prompting Bai to scream in refusal. A young, black-haired boy enters carrying a tray of food as BU reacts with a look of pure shock. BU frantically clarifies that he misunderstood what she meant. While they eat, the man tells her not to hold a grudge against his brother. He promises to forgive her if she finishes her entire breakfast without leaving any leftovers. The girl agrees to finish her plate while she begins to eat. The man mentions that while the food in front of them is chicken, the porridge she is eating contains beef. A sudden, wet puff sounding as BU spits out her food in shock, making the man laugh and praise her toughness. Coughing and gagging, the girl asks how he could tell a child something so disturbing. Bayu grows suspicious and asks where he got the money for beef, since their supplies are supposed to be meager. The man smiles and explains that they occasionally get paid to deal with strange people. The boy adds that the money is for their father's medicine, realizing the family has been exploiting the man's talents for a long time. BU envisions the man being manipulated by dark forces, noting the family kicked him out for being sick, yet still exploited his valuable abilities. They continue their meal in the quiet room. Bayu looks at the man and tells him he doesn't have to do that kind of work anymore. Standing up with determination, the purple-haired girl declares that she is the head of this place from today on. Reflecting on her fourth regression, Bayu thinks about how she can use her knowledge of the future to secure their wealth. A black-haired man looks at her with a stunned expression. A sudden, firm tap sounding as the man laughs and covers the boy's mouth, finding her declaration reassuring. He asks if this means they are finally a family, catching BU off guard. The man explains that as the head, she must protect the members of the family, which BU reluctantly agrees to. His expression turns serious as he asks why she was found collapsed on the street the day before. The man insists that families shouldn't keep secrets, while the boy mentions his father's secret instructions. The man quickly silences the boy, leaving BU to wonder what is actually going on. The girl feels pressured and wonders what kind of excuse she can possibly make. She realizes she cannot mention her secret healing ability and notices the man's growing concern. A sudden, chilling rush sounding as the man's eyes glow red while he asks if her father hit her, offering to scold him. Bayu quickly lies and says nothing happened, claiming her father only promised to take her to the market. She insists she is just physically weak as the man watches her with an intense gaze. He hums thoughtfully and says he wants to help her however he can. The man looks directly at her and announces his intention to become her guardian. Bayu thinks she will help him regardless of his offer, but the man emphasizes that her medical treatment is a major part of the deal. A spectral vision of a purple-haired woman appears behind the man as they talk. Bayu thinks his words are a lie, recalling how she was abandoned and exploited in every past regression without anyone coming to find her. The man makes an excuse about her living well in the main house, which confuses the girl. He explains that it was because her mother had done something significant for the family. Looking at a vision of the beautiful woman, Bayu reflects that her mother is someone she barely knows and has heard nothing about across all her lives. The girl remembers that her mother was already gone by the time she regained her memories in each regression. The black-haired man looks down and admits he didn't even know she was being kept in the East Wing. He looks her in the eyes and offers a sincere apology.